an honor to work for an organization that I know is embracing the struggle to deliver a high quality service.
Before I went into Cornerstone Montgomery, I was bedridden for an extended period of time due to the depression.
I have had mental health problems since I was a late teenager.
I was basically a survivor from being bullied.
I was fighting every day suicidal ideation.
Especially turning 19, having my first psychotic break, in and out of hospitals for 15 years.
I was in an abusive relationship.
I lost my aunt and my cousin at a very young age. Then my grandmother. Then later for a couple of years, then my dad, and then so forth and so forth.
The fact that, people are mentally ill is quite it's got a taboo to it that most other illnesses do not.
Since mental health issues have been discriminated against, ignored, put down, I've lost my own dignity and have had to try to fight just getting that back.
People that have to hide the fact that they are mentally ill is a shame.
And most of us understand that we're going to need services for the rest of our lives, but that's not a bad thing. I know not everybody can utilize mental health services, but I hope that the people who really need them get them, and that the people who are getting them get a chance to really utilize them, and I see that happening at Cornerstone Montgomery.
So 50 years ago, behavioral health services were in a much different place. Most people were sent away to hospitals, state hospitals usually, and were left there for years, and were left languishing there. And it wasn't until about 50 years ago that started changing, and people started realizing those weren't great places for people to be, and they started releasing them out into the community. The problem with that was that they were releasing them to the community with no supports and no place for them to go.
So many of the organizations that were set up, like Cornerstone Montgomery, in the early 70s to help transform the model for where and how people got mental health services, didn't have the funding that they needed to provide the strong and robust system of care that people with mental health needs have.
So all of those people, many of them, if they didn't have family to return to, they were returning to the streets.
Henrietta Williams was her name. And her concern was that people who needed mental health care weren't getting it. And she started a campaign to get the church to help underwrite an effort to start a county-led home.
This is actually how Cornerstone Montgomery got started, because of a small group of parishioners from St. Luke's Episcopal Church in Bethesda who saw this happening, saw these people on the streets, and realized that something needed to be done. And they started St. Luke's House in the basement of their church, where they provided support and started figuring out how to provide services and counseling to these folks so that they could try and reintegrate back into the community.
I was a nurse and had been one for 25 years before I came to St. Luke's House. And St. Luke's House really intrigued me because it offered such a wide array of services and programs that I was pretty astounded. Mostly outpatient treatment, medications, residential, crisis center, and that kind of thing. And so I did work there for 11 years.
But the basic idea was fix people up as well as we can, put them in outpatient care, and have a good life.
And 10 years later, this was still happening. There were still people coming out of the state hospitals with no place to go.
When we realized it was really getting worse for him and that none of this was working was when he walked away from one of his outpatient classes. And again, we couldn't find him. It turned out he had walked from the hospital to our house, which was about 3 miles. And he was sitting there on the back porch. He said, "Mom, I couldn't get in."
And a group of concerned family members who were part of NAMI, they decided they needed to do something. And they started Threshold Services and opened one of the first group homes in the state, Chadwick House. And so between St. Luke's Church and some family members from NAMI, Cornerstone Montgomery was born. And, 9 years ago, in 2012, St. Luke's House and Threshold Services merged to become Cornerstone Montgomery. And I think if you look at that history of the 50 years, both those organizations have worked together. We collaborated so many times. We did so much work together. And it was just a very logical idea that we should come together and be one. We had decided we didn't want to affiliate with any hospital systems. We wanted to retain our independence. And at that time, a lot of things were happening in the health world, and we wanted to make sure that we positioned ourselves to be ready for those changes so that we could, help our clients as much as possible. And because of that merger, we've grown from an $8 million organization to a $27 million organization. We have, served so many more people. We do evidence-based practices, we do substance use treatment, as well as mental health. We have case management, crisis services, housing, the clinic services. We try and cover the full gamut of needs that our clients have. And it's really been an amazing journey for me because I've been part of it for over 26 years.
Cornerstone doesn't just focus on one narrow area. They focus on a spectrum of services. And so they're able to stay engaged with families and individuals at many stages of their struggle with mental illness.
It's great to have an employer who's understanding of our differences and willing to communicate about it instead of just getting frustrated and tossing us like most of society.
And it's given me the ability to have somewhere to go 2 days a week where I'm accepted for who I am and I get to create. And I think the Studio Insight has helped me exhibit my work, sell certain pieces.
The staff was very supportive and wanted me to have that outlet again while therapeutically I dealt with what it means and how it could help me with my therapeutic process.
Cornerstone had good transition houses, and transitioning for Chris meant going from the hospital, getting kind of back into the swing of things, and then going back to his group home, wherever it happened to be. And we were just always so grateful, and we will be eternally grateful for that period of Chris's life.
The one important thing that I learned in Cornerstone is to be happy with myself and take time for myself. And right now, I'm on my journey of self-care.